Hey all, welcome back to week 3 of our Blurry series. Actually, I hope that is not an adjective but a title for you, um, even though it might be blurry outside. And by blurry, I mean dreary as well. It's raining currently as I record this. But the good news is, I think you guys are done with school, right? At least most of you are. That's awesome. Congratulations, especially you graduates, you seniors. It's summer. And so I want to let you know with our summer schedule, actually of events and stuff that we're doing, we're going to be starting up in a couple weeks. We put it on Instagram if you want to go check it out there, but we're switching a couple dates. So we were supposed to do Chicken and Pickle on June 4th, but actually we're going to move that to June 17th. And on June 4th, we're still getting together. That's Thursday night, 6 to 8. We'll be hanging out at the church on the basketball courts, and we'll be doing some water games. So make sure to wear your swimsuit or some clothes you can get wet. Bring a towel, and I'll have food and drinks there for you guys, okay? Anyways, that's all the announcements I wanted to let you know. We're going to continue on in our teaching. So jumping into week 3 this afternoon, or whenever you're listening and watching to this, we're going to be talking about our lives. And we've been talking about how in the midst of distractions and doubt and all of those things. But in this week, we're talking about what's the difference between doubt and disobedience. And so the first fact and truth that I want to reveal to you is that doubt can lead to disobedience. So as we've been talking, we understand that doubting is a normal part of life. And even doubting God and what's going on, is it good? What is this and why is it happening to me? Those are real questions and things that we work through. But a truth is that our doubt can lead to our disobedience of God. And so the truth is we can't sit in that doubt that we have for too long. James 1:22 through 24 says this: "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like." So God speaks to us. He uses events. He uses even doubts or people, but mostly his word to speak to us. And when we're reading, when we're walking through these things, when people speak to us and share what God is telling us, we must do more than just listen. We must actually do. So this verse, it says like you're a person who forgets what they look like. So they look at a mirror, they walk away, and they forget what they look like. And so in that, it's God's word, it's who he is. We might hear who God is, that he loves us, and we walk away and we immediately forget again. We let those truths of who God is and how he loves us fall away. And it makes me kind of think of this. There's more to it than just listening. We have to do. And so as you guys were growing up, did you guys get assigned chores in growing up? I know in my house, I was supposed to take out the trash, and in the summertime, I mowed the yard. So those were just things that were on my list. My job was to do those things. But in order to really know how to do them, especially to mow the yard, I had to be taught, right, in how to do it. If my parents over and over, they would have told me to mow the yard without actually showing me how, I wouldn't have been able to do it, or at least to do it well or correctly, right? Or even might have hurt myself while doing it. And so God, he gives us his word in how to walk with him, to love him and others. And that's great if we do it. But if we just read it, it becomes disobedience and anarchy to God, right? So if God's saying, hey, Ben, it's okay to doubt, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this. And if we hear it and we don't do it, we're just like parents who are trying to tell us to do something and we just ignore it, right? It's not good. That's the truth, is that doubt leads to disobedience, and disobedience is not good when it comes to what God is asking us to do. The second truth is that disobedience often, if not always, has selfish motives. So there's this story in the book of Numbers that's in the Old Testament, and the Israelites, they're actually wandering the desert still. So this is the 40 years they're wandering the desert, and they're approaching the promised land. So it's towards the end. And so they've started to battle many of their enemies, and they've defeated all of them. And now they're approaching the king of Moab's kingdom. His name was Balak. And this is where we pick up on the story, Numbers chapter 22, verses 1 through 41, and it says this: Then the Israelites, they traveled to the plains of Moab, and they camped along the Jordan across from Jericho. Now Balak son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, which was another tribe, and Moab was terrified because there were so many people. Indeed, Moab was filled with dread because of the Israelites. The Moabites said to the elders of Midian, "This horde is going to lick up everything around us, as an ox licks up the grass of the field." So Balak son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at the time, sent messengers to summon Balaam son of Beor. So Balaam and Balak, two different people, who was at Pethor near the Euphrates River in his native land. And Balak said this to Balaam: A people has come out of Egypt. They covered the face of the land and have settled next to me. Now come and put a curse on these people because they are too powerful for me. Perhaps then I will be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that whoever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is cursed. So the elders of Moab and Midian left, taking with them the fee for divination. When they came to Balaam, they told him what Balak had said. "Spend the night here," Balaam said to them, "and I will report back to you with the answer the Lord gives me." And so the Moabite officials stayed with him. God came to Balaam and asked, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. A people that has come out of Egypt covers the face of the land. Now come and put a curse on them for me. Perhaps then I will be able to fight them and drive them away." But God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. You must not put a curse on those people because they are blessed." And the next morning Balaam got up and said to Balak's official, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." So Balak got his answer, and Balaam got his answer from God. They heard from God. And so the Moabite officials returned to Balak, and they said, "Balaam refused to come with us." But then Balak sent other officials, more numerous and more distinguished than the first. So proud people, better people, to convince him. And they came to Balaam and they said, "This is what Balak son of Zippor says. Do not let anything keep you from coming to me, because I will reward you handsomely and do whatever you say. Come and put a curse on these people for me." But Balaam answered them again, "Even if Balak gave me all the silver and gold in his palace, I would not do anything great or small to go beyond the command of the Lord my God. Now spend the night here so that I can find out what else the Lord will tell me." That night God came to Balaam and said, "Since these men have come to summon you, go with them, but do only what I tell you." So Balaam got up in the morning, he saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field, and Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. And then the angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, neither to the right or the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam. And he was angry, and he beat it with his staff. And then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth. Right. That's true. And it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me 3 times?" This donkey talks to Balaam. And Balaam doesn't freak out. Balaam answered the donkey. He spoke back to him and he said, "You've made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." And the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? And have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," he said. And then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. And so he bowed low and fell face down. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? I've come here to oppose you because your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now. But I would have spared it, the donkey." Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now if you're displeased, I will go back." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you." So Balaam went with Balak's officials. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him in the Moabite town on the Arnon border, at the edge of his territory. Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not send you an urgent summons? Why didn't you come to me? Am I really not able to reward you?" "Well, I've come to you now," Balaam replied, but I can't say whatever I please. I must speak only what God puts in my mouth." Then Balaam went with Balak to Kirith Huzoth, and Balak sacrificed cattle and sheep and gave some to Balaam and the officials who were with him. The next morning Balak took Balaam up to Bamoth Baal, and from there he could see the outskirts of the Israelite camp. So a couple things from this story. Balaam is a prophet. We don't get any word that he was a prophet of God or a prophet to other gods. It almost seems as if he just did the bidding of whoever, whatever God that it would be, but he recognizes God as his one true God. So there's that. But Balak thinks he can hire Balaam. And there's an interesting part in here where Balaam has refused, right? He said, "No, I won't do that because God told me not to." But then Balak sends those second round of people and they say, "We'll pay you whatever." And Balaam says this funny thing. He said, "Now, even if the king would give me all of the gold and silver in his palace, I would not do it." So it's almost like this, hey, even if you gave me all of this, I wouldn't do it. And so we start to see that Balaam's motives in this is himself. He starts to see how he can reward himself. And so finally, he asks God, and God gives him the okay. But then he starts out in the morning, and God gets angry and sends an angel in the morning. And I think the reality of that is God's not changing his mind, but God sees why Balaam actually is going. And so he puts an angel there, and that donkey stops 3 times. And Balaam smacks it and beats it until finally God lets the donkey speak. And the donkey tells Balaam that there's an angel of the Lord and it would kill him. And then God opens Balaam's eyes to see the angel of the Lord that would have killed him. And the angel says, "Your donkey spared your life. I would have killed you if it would have came." And so the interesting thing here is that later on, Balaam actually goes to Balak, and Balak wants him to curse the Israelites. And instead of cursing, Balaam actually blesses the Israelites 4 times. And the final time he's blessing the Israelites on top of these mountains, he prophesies about a king that one day would rule the world from the tribe of Israel. But so this is a testimony of Jesus. It's a prophecy of Jesus. But we do see that Balaam changes his motives because God threatened him. God showed him that his motives would bring death, when in reality he wasn't being obedient to God. Doubt in what God is doing and selfish motives cause disobedience, and in this case would have led to death. And yet God gave grace in this. So for you need to be careful that in the midst of your doubts and questioning, you don't act out of selfish motives, but obedience to God. When God puts an obvious answer in front of you, like stay, you be careful to walk in that obedience. Finally, the third truth I think we see in doubt and disobedience is that God uses our trials and doubts in order to give us perspective, hope, and a story to share. So I've seen in my own life many other Jesus followers who have struggled and doubted, and even they've caused destruction in their life because of those things. But those people who know Jesus and that I'm talking about, those are the ones who have experienced many of the things that you will walk through and are walking through. But do you know what I see in those people now? They have walked through it and they are on the other side. They understand how difficult it is when doing the right thing in obedience and sometimes doing the selfish thing and leaving destruction. But they are passionately pursuing Jesus so that they can share that story with people like you who are walking through that same thing. God uses these things, these doubts, these trials, these things in our lives, not to weaken us, but to strengthen us in Him. And maybe one day, your story, your trials, your doubts, you'll be able to walk through that with somebody else who needs you, just like you need somebody else. So that's my encouragement to you, is to not see those things as just a difficult time, but to see them as an opportunity. I give you perspective that one day you can share what you did, how you felt in the midst of it, with somebody who's walking through it just like you might be right now. I love doing that in my job. I love it when one of you comes to me and says, hey, I'm walking through this. And I go, hey, I've been there. And here, let me tell you what you shouldn't do. But let me walk with you and help you listen to what God calls you to. And here's what I wish I would have done and what God told me to do and I didn't do it. Our stories, our doubts, our trials, the times in our life that are blurry, they're not just weak moments. They're moments that are strengthening us, that are helping us to continue to passionately follow Jesus. I love you all, and I hope you're doing well. We'll see you soon.